Flight attendant humiliates passenger. Not knowing she's the airline owner, the airport terminal fell completely silent. A sickening crack echoed through the crowded boarding gate, cutting through announcements and conversations like a gunshot. An elderly woman's ornate walking stick clattered against the polished floor, the sound amplified by the sudden quiet. Gasps rippled through the gathered passengers as the elderly woman instinctively raised a trembling hand to protect herself, her steel, grey eyes wide with disbelief. Standing rigidly before her was flight attendant Olivia Pierce, her name tag gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. Olivia's face twisted with disdain, eyes blazing with impatience as she pointed aggressively toward the boarding gate. "I told you clearly to move aside," Olivia snapped, her voice deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. "First-class boarding isn't for people like you." A heavy, shocked silence enveloped the terminal. Everyone stood frozen, eyes darting between Olivia and the elderly woman. No one dared to intervene, though uncomfortable whispers began to stir. But the elderly woman, known as Eleanor Hayes, didn't cry out or protest. Her hand trembled slightly, but with incredible dignity and quiet defiance. She bent slowly, painstakingly picking up her walking stick, straightening with a grace that contrasted starkly against Olivia's aggression. Eleanor looked directly into the flight attendant's eyes. Her gaze wasn't angry. It was something far deeper, far more powerful. A quiet, piercing calm that visibly unsettled even the hardened flight attendant. In a steady, quiet voice that resonated with unmistakable authority, Eleanor uttered words that sent chills down the spines of everyone within earshot. "You've just made the gravest mistake of your career." Before we continue with this shocking airport confrontation, leave a comment below letting us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible real life stories just like this one. A short while earlier, the airport lounge had been filled with the gentle clinking of coffee cups and murmurs of conversation. In a secluded corner by the expansive windows sat Eleanor Hayes, her hands delicately folded atop the carved ebony handle of her elegant walking stick. Dressed in a refined but understated navy blue suit with a vintage pearl brooch carefully pinned above her heart. Eleanor's silver hair was styled into soft waves, lending her an air of quiet sophistication. To most travelers rushing by, she appeared to be just another elderly woman patiently awaiting her flight. Nearby, a sharply dressed younger man, Nathan Foster, glanced up from his laptop, noticing Eleanor's dignified presence. He instinctively stood, politely gesturing toward his seat with a respectful nod. "Would you like my seat, ma'am?" he offered kindly. Eleanor raised her eyes to meet his, offering a gentle, appreciative smile. "Thank you, young man, but I am quite comfortable." Nathan nodded respectfully, returning her smile warmly as he resumed his seat, completely unaware of the true identity and significance of the graceful woman seated just steps away from him. At the bustling check-in counter, flight attendants moved briskly, their clipped voices efficiently directing passengers. Among them, Olivia Pierce stood out. Tall, severe, and self-assured. Her dark hair was pulled tightly back, accentuating sharp features that rarely softened. Olivia had long served the first-class cabin and wore her authority like an invisible crown, making snap judgments about who was worthy of her exclusive domain. Her eyes scanned the lounge swiftly, categorizing passengers. She acknowledged those who fit her ideal image: expensive suits, designer luggage, authoritative demeanors, while swiftly dismissing anyone who fell short of her standards. When her gaze briefly landed upon Eleanor, Olivia paused, her lip curling slightly in disdain, before quickly moving on, barely registering the elderly woman's presence. Her attention returned sharply to the high-profile business executives she intended to serve attentively on this flight, completely unaware that Eleanor Hayes was no ordinary traveler, and certainly someone whose dignity should never be questioned among other high-profile passengers who expected nothing less than flawless service. As the announcement for first-class boarding echoed through the terminal, Eleanor calmly rose from her seat. She carefully adjusted the silk scarf around her neck and tightened her delicate grip on the polished ebony handle of her walking stick. Eleanor moved toward the boarding gate unhurriedly, each step deliberate and composed, as though time itself held no sway over her. Other passengers hurriedly wove around her, eager to settle into their seats, barely noticing her quiet dignity as they rushed forward. When Eleanor reached the gate, she gracefully extended her boarding pass to the attendant stationed at the entrance. Olivia Pierce. Olivia barely glanced at the ticket before abruptly lifting her hand, blocking Eleanor with visible irritation. "Ma'am, this line is exclusively for first-class passengers," Olivia stated crisply, her tone superficially polite, yet dripping with contempt. Eleanor slowly raised her gaze, meeting Olivia's dismissive eyes directly, her expression calm yet unreadable. "I'm fully aware," she replied gently, her voice steady and composed. Olivia exhaled sharply, irritation deepening on her face as she studied the boarding pass more carefully. Her brow furrowed in disbelief, clearly skeptical that an elderly woman with such modest appearance could possibly hold a legitimate first-class ticket. "Are you absolutely sure this is your ticket?" Olivia asked condescendingly, tilting her head mockingly, clearly anticipating Eleanor to admit some error or misunderstanding. Eleanor, however, remained impeccably calm, showing no offense at the degrading question. "Yes, I am quite certain," she answered quietly, unwavering. Olivia pursed her lips impatiently, glancing behind Eleanor as if expecting a caregiver or companion to step in and clarify the supposed misunderstanding. Yet no one came forward. Eleanor was traveling alone. Sighing exaggeratedly, Olivia shook her head dismissively, her voice now raised slightly, intentionally audible to those around. Clearly, There's been some kind of mistake, she said patronizingly, as if explaining a basic concept to a confused child. First class is reserved for specific passengers, she continued, waving her hand dismissively toward the economy boarding gate. You belong over there. Eleanor stood motionless, her serene gaze never wavering, undisturbed by Olivia's increasingly disrespectful tone. After a deliberate pause, Eleanor finally spoke again, her voice firm and authoritative. There is no mistake. This is my seat. Olivia's jaw visibly tightened, anger flickering across her face. She'd encountered countless passengers before. Those attempting to sneak into first class with fake tickets or illegitimate upgrades, and had absolutely no tolerance left. Frustrated, she held Eleanor's ticket up against the overhead lights, scrutinizing it dramatically for signs of forgery. I don't know how you managed to obtain this, Olivia muttered under her breath, her voice laced with suspicion and disgust. But you won't be sitting here today. Behind Eleanor, the boarding line grew tense as curious onlookers began exchanging uncomfortable glances. Nathan Foster, the young businessman who earlier offered Eleanor his seat, tensed visibly, hesitating as though he wanted to intervene, but choosing silence. Olivia's patience snapped completely. Her voice became harsh and cutting, openly humiliating Eleanor. I've had enough of this nonsense. Step aside immediately. When Eleanor remained resolute, not giving an inch, Olivia's composure broke entirely. With a sudden, shocking motion, she violently slapped the boarding pass out of Eleanor's hand. The sharp sound pierced through the terminal like a whip crack, causing passengers to gasp audibly. Eleanor's walking stick fell from her grip, hitting the polished floor with an echoing clatter. A stunned silence descended over the gate area. Julia Morgan, a woman standing nearby, covered her mouth in horror. Nathan's jaw tightened with anger, his eyes wide with disbelief. Yet Olivia seemed utterly indifferent to their reactions. I told you to move, she snapped coldly, voice raised without an ounce of remorse. But Eleanor, instead of recoiling or protesting, slowly bent down to retrieve her fallen walking stick. Her movements graceful yet powerful in their calm dignity. Rising once more to her full height, she met Olivia's glare directly, her clear eyes radiating a quiet, formidable strength that made the attendant instinctively step backward. The tension hung heavy between them, almost suffocating. Then Eleanor spoke, softly yet clearly, her calm, quiet voice sending an unmistakable chill through the air. You've just made the gravest mistake of your entire career. The silence grew thicker, stifling, almost tangible. Then, in a voice so chillingly calm it froze the very air around them, Eleanor spoke again. You've just made the gravest mistake of your life. Olivia scoffed, an uneasy laugh forced from her throat, though her eyes shifted nervously beneath Eleanor's unwavering stare. Ma'am, I don't have time for these theatrics, she said coldly, her voice dripping with contempt. If you refuse to move, I'll have security escort you out immediately. The crowd around them began murmuring louder, discomfort and disbelief rippling through the gathering passengers. Nathan Foster clenched his jaw tightly, visibly wrestling with whether or not he should intervene. Julia Morgan anxiously scanned the surrounding faces, desperately hoping someone would speak up. Yet nobody did. They simply stared in silent anticipation, captivated by the drama unfolding before them. Unfazed, Eleanor stood her ground. Her composure extraordinary, despite the humiliation she'd just endured. She calmly retrieved her fallen walking stick, grasping it firmly with a dignity that only deepened Olivia's irritation. Her voice remained steady, poised, and firm, cutting through the tension. "I have a first-class ticket, and I intend to board this flight in my rightful seat." Olivia drew a sharp, irritated breath through clenched teeth, shaking her head incredulously. "Unbelievable," she muttered bitterly under her breath. Without another glance at Eleanor, Olivia spun sharply toward Rebecca Chen, a younger flight attendant standing nearby. "Rebecca, call security." "Now?" Rebecca hesitated visibly, her eyes darting uncertainly between Olivia and Eleanor. Something about this entire exchange felt deeply wrong. Eleanor Hayes wasn't behaving like someone who had made an error or been caught doing something dishonest. She displayed none of the expected signs of panic or nervousness. Instead, she radiated a calm authority that made Rebecca pause. Olivia's impatient glare intensified, however, forcing Rebecca to reluctantly reach for the intercom. But before Rebecca could summon security, a commanding voice interrupted sharply. "That won't be necessary." Everyone turned simultaneously to see a senior airline official striding confidently toward them. Thomas Sullivan moved swiftly, his perfectly tailored suit reflecting an aura of indisputable authority, his badge clipped prominently to his chest. His face was expressionless, his eyes cold yet fiercely authoritative. Ignoring Olivia entirely, he approached Eleanor directly, respectfully inclining his head. "Mrs. Hayes," he spoke with clear reverence, "my sincerest apologies for the unacceptable delay. Your seat is ready, and we're honored to have you aboard." Olivia blinked in stunned disbelief, her mouth opening briefly before snapping shut again. Her voice trembled, barely audible. "Wait, what?" Only now did Thomas turn toward Olivia, his gaze steely and unforgiving. "Step aside immediately, Miss Pierce," he ordered quietly, his tone brooking no argument. A heavy, oppressive silence engulfed the terminal. Olivia felt the ground beneath her sway as panic began tightening its grip around her throat. Thomas's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Mrs. Eleanor Hayes is not just a first-class passenger," he said, each word falling like a heavy stone. "She's the majority shareholder and newly appointed CEO of this entire airline." The color drained completely from Olivia's face as the full weight of her actions crashed down upon her. The crowd's whispers grew louder, phones discreetly recording the unfolding drama. Eleanor simply stood there, her quiet dignity more powerful than any shouted command could ever be. without another word. Thomas gently guided Eleanor past the stunned Olivia and toward the aircraft door, leaving the disgraced flight attendant frozen in place, her career hanging by the thinnest of threads. As Eleanor passed, she paused briefly, her voice so quiet only Olivia could hear. "Your uniform, Miss Pierce. You won't be needing it after today." The last thing Olivia saw before her world completely collapsed was Eleanor Hayes, walking steadily down the jetway, her walking stick tapping rhythmically against the floor, each step marking the final moments of Olivia's career with this airline. And just like that, in a mere 5 minutes, everything Olivia had built over years crumbled to dust. All because she judged someone by their appearance, rather than treating them with the basic dignity every human deserves. If you enjoyed this story about consequences and treating others with respect, hit that subscribe button now for more incredible real-life stories. Remember, you never know who might be standing in front of you, so choose kindness every time.